Welcome to the impetus for CDR in January. We hope you all had a wonderful break and festive season and a great start into 2024. My name is Sarah Elisa Kettner, and I'm the head of the initiative of CDR office, and I'm very happy to be hosting today's Impulse. Before we start today's presentation, a few brief updates from the office of the CDR Initiative. We are currently working on our program for 2024 and coordinating it with our members. So what I can say so far is that for sure we will have a CDR conference this fall, and we will discuss all the relevant facets of CDR with you, so stay tuned on that. So this is one of the events, and another thing which is very likely to happen this year in our program is the digital data cleanup. So we did that, the digital data cleanup 2023. In September, with overall 49 organizations who cleaned with their employees, their email accounts, and their drives to remove redundant files and so on. So this action and this initiative will happen most likely this year as well. So for the virtual program and how the impetus for CDR will continue, we will inform you via our newsletter and of course via LinkedIn. So stay tuned on that as well. But now we are very much looking forward to the impetus for CDR, and this is the last one for this season. And Safa will join us today. She's from Tactical Tech, and she will give a presentation on the Tactical Tech Toolkits, critical digital and media literacy for everyone. And as in the past, we of course will have enough time for your questions. So as always, if you have a question for Safa, just post it into the chat, and I will direct all the questions to Safa from the studio. Of course, usually the CDR talks are in German, but this time we have a presentation and Q&A in English. You are of course allowed to direct your questions in German into the chat, and I will translate them and then direct them to Safa. Another note from our side, the event will be recorded and posted online on our website. So if you want to look at the video again or share this contribution with your colleagues, just feel free to do so. Okay, so without further ado, let me introduce our today's speaker. Safa, as I said, is Associate Program Director at Tactical Tech. She co-authors the Data Detox Kit since 2018, and we will hear about that today. It focuses on a variety of digital topics, including data privacy and online well-being, and she also co-authored and co-developed the Digital Inquiry Kit, an e-learning tool in 2021. We will hear about that today as well. And she cooperatively did that in a close team with international digital security experts. Furthermore, she has led countless in-person and online capacity building workshops with educators, librarians, human rights defenders, engaging individuals and organizations around the topics of the aforementioned projects, paying special attention to well-being and cross-applicable skills like critical thinking. She carefully balances play and presentation when engaging with adults to ensure a memorable and practical experience for participants. And before joining Tactical Tech, she specialized in adult education and writing. So, Safa, thank you very much for being here. We're very much looking forward to your presentation and the insights you will share with us today.
Thank you so much. It's so nice to be here, and I'm very excited to share the work that I'm doing with your audiences, and hopefully they find something interesting to them. So today I'm going to take some approaches of storytelling and lots of visuals, because we're a very highly visual organization, to show you what it is that we do. I won't have a chance to share everything Tactical Tech does, but you'll get just a taste of some of our projects. So let's start with a story. So imagine this. You're walking down a busy shopping street in central London or New York, and you spot a place that you hadn't noticed before. You can see here through the shiny glass windows. You can see inside bright white tables, neon signs, screens, and workers wearing all white uniforms. It looks like a tech store, but as soon as you enter, you realize that nothing is for sale. It's actually a free public intervention that aims to demystify technology through immersive, thought-provoking, self-learning exhibitions. Here, visitors find a place where they can freely explore and critically discuss technology. The objects presented center on data, privacy, and our relationship to the technologies and platforms which have become so commonplace in our everyday lives. You can see here one such object called Google Society, which takes a massive data set of companies owned within Google's alphabet empire and visualizes them in this three-dimensional diagram to better understand the scope and complexity of their business acquisitions. I'm talking about the Glass Room, which began as a large-scale exhibition traveling from Berlin to New York, London, and San Francisco between 2016 and 2019 at a large scale. And then it transformed into a pop-up, which reached so far has reached more than 352,000 visitors in over 60 countries, visitors who are eager to dig deeper into their digital lives. And here you can see some of the pop-up posters that were displayed during the most intense parts of the COVID pandemic. Here they're displayed in the windows of a library so that people can social distance, view them outside, even when the library may have been closed to the public. The visitors who come to the Glass Room, even though they just stumble inside by accident, they tend to be passionate to make informed choices with their technological habits, just as they carefully do with their consumer choices and votes. In particular, our visitors are surprised to learn about how personality profiling is used to not only convince us to, let's say, buy a pair of shoes, but also to take a certain stance on important issues. And here I have a visual of one of our interactive online objects called A Drop in the Ocean, which is a personality profiling test you can take. It's private, so it shouldn't affect anything online. The results are not saved anywhere, but it helps you to see, depending on your personality, what kinds of advertisements you might receive, how the advertisements that most affect you. I set the scene here to invite you into a space where you can freely explore these topics together. In this presentation, I'm going to share a number of resources with you that we've developed or have worked with artists to develop, which use engaging approaches to digital literacy, public education, and awareness raising, in particular with a focus on including everyone into the discussion about data privacy and looking at it as a shared responsibility. All of our images displayed come from our various projects, so if something sparks your interest, let me know. I can help you find it. So far, all of the images I've shown you are from the Glass Room. and the QR code can take you to the Glassroom website. So as noted, my name is Safa Ghnaim, and I'm Associate Program Director at Tactical Tech. And I'm so grateful that you've invited me here today and that you're taking your time to be with me right now. So Tactical Tech is a Berlin-based international nonprofit organization. We were established in 2003, so we just finished celebrating our 20-year anniversary last year. And we we critically explore the impacts of technology on societies, working alongside journalists, investigators, human rights defenders, civil society activists, researchers, and of course, artists. Even when there is no ill intent, modern technologies and the data and algorithms that power them carry with them a lot of potential to sway opinions and influence choices, which made us both curious and concerned. Reactions that inspired our research and investigations over the years, which resulted in numerous outputs, such as reports, creative interventions like the Glassroom I showed you, toolkits, which you'll see some more of, trainings, and projects. Tactical Tech sees itself as building long-term capacity in the democracy space for those that are committed to these issues. Some of our landmark projects over the years have shed light on how modern technologies function, how the collection of personal data within platforms have become so commonplace and effective, and how to stay more private and safe online. Helping people understand how personal data is collected and used can help them to become more intentional and critical when faced with online advertisements, filter bubbles, curated news feeds, and sponsored search results. We'll explore some more of these projects which promote data care practices. But just to say briefly, here I have displayed is our Data Detox Kit Voter's Guide. And this has various tips on how to detox your data, but specifically within the context of an election. And, this year alone, there are over 80 elections happening around the world. So this is a great time to brush up on these topics to make sure that, you are as private as possible, that your data traces are a little bit more controlled, and hopefully that will, you can also understand and shed light on targeted advertisements, for example, in the context of an election. But let's go into a project that is near and dear to my heart. So if the internet were just a place for sharing pictures of dogs wearing costumes, like this adorable puppy in a hot dog costume, there wouldn't be much need for passwords, right? But of course, the internet is where you pay your bills, refill your prescriptions, register to vote. When you think about all of your virtual valuables that are shared over the internet and stored on your devices, why wouldn't you keep them as secure as your wallet and your house keys? This is how we approach lessons in the Data Detox Kit. The Data Detox Kit is a project that includes printed brochures, digital resources in over 40 languages, including German, and interactive workshops exploring how technology impacts and influences our lives. Since its start in 2016, the Data Detox Kit has helped adults and teens all over the world navigate tech more confidently, reduce their data traces, and look after their devices and stay media savvy. All of our resources online are free and open to everyone to access, by the way, if I haven't mentioned that yet. Here's a picture from our Data Detox bar at the Glassroom in San Francisco. So our projects kind of complement one another. In our Glassroom exhibitions, we tend to have a Data Detox bar, which is a table covered in these free giveaway booklets with people who can have a conversation with you and answer your questions and try to make sense of these digital technologies along with you. The Data Detox Kit is written in non-technical terms for people in a hurry, and our interactive and engaging workshops are in demand. As pictured here, you can see in a workshop with a partner called Ubuntu, who is based in the Ivory Coast. By learning about how digital technologies work, you can make more informed choices in your everyday life. And we have resources for teenagers, for families, and for general audiences, so adults, of course, as well. For educators, librarians, and just anybody who uses a smartphone, which is like everyone. Smartphone or email or anything online. Now let's shift to another project that might be interesting to you. So data protection, it's not only a problem for consumers. Organizers also often have to work directly with personal data or tools that create and collect personal data, whether it's through mailing lists, on social media, during event planning, monitoring and evaluation, organizing demonstrations, running petitions, carrying out fundraising, just to name a few. So while there are tools for individuals to protect their own privacy, there are also many reasons for organizers to consider the personal data they collect and create for others. However, it can be difficult for an organizer to know where to start within the available legal and technical guidance. There's no single right or wrong answer, and each organizer will have a different final balance between their needs, the risks of those they work with, and which tools are available to them. Maybe there are certain requirements at the workplace to use certain tools. So, the visuals I've been showing you so far have been from the organizer's activity book, and the QR code can take you there. So this organizer's activity book offers fun and engaging exercises to help organizers reflect and learn about the potential risks and benefits of using personal data. So here you can see a very sweet activity called Monster App Mash. And it's a great, just a funny way to learn about some different digital tools and, what information, what data they're collecting and what data is being shared. The activities within this organizer's activity book I've been showing you for a few slides will help you develop your data policy, which is a practical and personalized data use guide for individuals, organizations, or partnerships. The chapters in the book are accompanied with our how-to guide for evaluating data practices and creating a data policy, whether it's within a workshop or alongside a longer-term organizational review. So it can be quite helpful to skim through this and to see what could be helpful for you and your organization or in your personal life as well. Maybe you're organizing a party and an end of winter party, which we're all dreaming of. And it might be a good way to protect the data traces of the people you care about. Another project to share with you, and I think the last one for today, is about the Digital Inquirer Kit. So misinformation remains a major obstacle we face in information spaces, as you know, whether it be online scam operations, conspiracy theories, or poor journalism that we may see in well-established news media institutions. Misinformation can erode public trust and it can impede democracy. So for those seeking to prevent the spread of misinformation, the Digital Inquirer Kit can be a helpful resource. This e-learning course explores media literacy, verification, navigating the internet, and how to fact check safely. As previously mentioned, Tactical Tech developed the first 4 modules alongside a team, and I'll talk more about that team in a minute. But each module follows the story of a character who's faced with a case of misinformation, and only you can help them clear it up. So it tries to have a little bit of fun and to make the topics that we propose memorable. So this e-learning course was co-written along with 3 incredible digital security experts around the world who have a specialization in investigation. And so therefore, this digital inquirer kit is filled to the brim with important learnings relevant to just about everybody. Whether they work in civil society, human rights, or maybe they just more generally interact with members of the public who might be part of traditionally marginalized groups. Have you ever heard of the concept that risk is inherited? Here is one slide covering this important topic, which says, much like how you inherit other people's risks, they inherit yours as well. And depending on your safety practices and privacy measures, you may increase the risk of others you interact with. When I learned about risk is inherited when I was working with that team of digital security experts, I began to look at my daily interactions in a totally different light. And it's my hope that highlighting this particular topic today might also change your perspective. Maybe it gives you something to think about differently or look into. Why is risk inherited? What does that mean? Let's talk about it more. And look, I don't want to give you the wrong idea. I know that technology has incredible applications and potentials. There's truly no doubt about that. Because of modern technologies, even at the height of the COVID pandemic and social isolations, we were able to carry out several multinational projects across the world from my kitchen table, which connected civil society, educators, and journalists and built capacity. And I also realize how central it is in a crisis. You know, we've all seen how much we rely on tech to organize during a pandemic and to check on our loved ones during disasters. So it's deeply personal for me and for us. We are in the right to ask and expect more transparency to help us understand how is this technology used, and more accountability and responsible design, hand in hand with experts and human rights defenders, may mitigate problems before they escalate. It's simple. Citizens need to have the information to help them make more informed decisions. Over the course of the past decade, misinformation networks, data collection, and political campaigning have changed and been modernized. So now our support systems for understanding and protecting consumers need to also change and modernize too. So I thank you so much for your time today, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you very much, Safa, for your excellent presentation. It was very interesting to see all these projects which you're working on. So for our audience, feel free to post your questions in the chat. As I said, you can both do that in English as well as in German, and I translate it. But beforehand, I prepared also some questions from my side, because you raised some very interesting aspects. So first of all, a more practical question from the chat, which we already received. Someone is asking whether the audience may have the slides and the QR codes later. Is that possible?
Absolutely. I'm delighted if you share them or publish them. You're very welcome to.
All right, then let's do it this way. To the listeners who are interested in the slides, they may send us an email to the office of the CDR Initiative. You find our contact detail on our website, so www.cdr-initiative.de, and just send us an email, and then I will forward the slides to those who are interested. All right, that's excellent. So maybe some overarching questions before we dive deeper into the landmark projects you introduced. So what I'm interested in is, how do you interact with citizens or users or consumers? Like, how are they part of your products, the research you're performing? How do you involve them?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, the big ethos that I follow in my work, that I was trained with and that I learned from, is to meet people where they're at. If someone is not a very technical person, maybe they feel uncomfortable even accessing the settings on their phone, I find that the best approach is to maybe not talk about technology in such a technical way. We don't necessarily need to talk about it like an engineer or a computer scientist would. We could maybe approach these topics more with, the view of ethics and philosophy and, just very practical day to day. When do you use technology? How? When is it helping your life? When is it blocking you from doing actually what you want to be doing? So looking at it in these ways, and I think, along with meeting people where they're at, taking also a non-judgmental approach is one thing that I found a lot of success with. I think, sometimes people feel a little bit nervous to come to my workshops or any workshop, by a librarian or an educator around the world. They might feel a little nervous. I shouldn't go to that workshop because, my online life is a mess and I'm embarrassed, or I don't want to be lectured. But we don't lecture you. I think it's so important to acknowledge that I don't know your life situation. I don't know where you work, what you need to do to get by. So I'm not going to judge you. But what we can do is we can just explore the tools that you are using and see, are these serving you, or are they taking from you and not really serving you? Is there an alternative? So looking at it in this way is quite important.
All right, thank you for that answer. Maybe a question on your expectations towards companies. As you know, we're in an initiative who have members who, of course, engage in the digital sphere. They handle data. They have customers. They, of course, also offer digital products, for example, banking or telecommunication and so on. So what would be your expectation? That's one part of the question. And then also from the perspective of these companies who take CDR, so digital responsibility, very serious, and this is the expectation and the aim, of course, of our members, what could they do to support digital education in their products? So, yeah.
Great. Thank you so much for these questions. And, I think when it comes to people who work in tech companies, it's so important that we work together. None of us are working separately. None of us can achieve our aims separately. We have to really come together. And, I get really excited when I see tech companies working together with people who specialize in, civil society, civic, technical responsibility, people who are critiquing these technologies, policymakers, educators. I think when I see spaces where all of these come together, I get really happy because, of course, one person can't change everything. But I think that together and being open and being receptive to critique and feedback is a really great space, a great starting point for change. You know, when we did our Glassroom exhibition in San Francisco, it was a really fascinating experience because we had people coming in all the time who, you know, worked at all of these big tech companies, probably the app that you use. They were probably in the Glassroom, truly so many people because it was in the heart of San Francisco. And they, the people that we had conversations with were very open and very curious. And actually they too had a sense that, hey, this isn't going as I was hoping it would be going. So how can we work together? What changes can we make that don't just totally, you know, flip things upside down? Because maybe they didn't have the power to do that. But like little changes, what can we do? So that's nice. And for the second part about education, I think, you know, the way that we work with educators, for example, which I think is really important that I see other nonprofit organizations doing, is that we are kind of this third party voice. You know, we are not funded by a big tech company. And so when we go into, you know, into these settings where we can educate people and talk with people, we're also not pushing like certain tools, like, you know, so I think that is really important then for, if tech companies are very serious about educating people on these topics, to maybe seek out advocates, specialists, researchers, who, you know, who can do that work, who's like a third party. I think it gives a lot more credibility to those discussions when they're not paid for by a big tech company. I hope that makes sense.
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you very much for your answer. And also an invitation, of course, to our audience, to our members, to get in touch with you, to cooperate. So that is very interesting. I think just from our perspective, as we were speaking about fake news, misinformation, that's also a very important part of the issues our members are confronted with in their corporate life or the business they're doing. So what we did is in the last year, our colleagues from the office, together with the companies, they published a policy paper, which may be found on our website. And we're actually focusing on how to overcome and how companies can overcome this. And we also work together with nonprofit organizations, quoting them. So this is a very fruitful exchange, and I think we should continue this in the future. So this is just a side note from our work, that we will stay in touch. But of course, all our the people listening to us should get in touch with you and interact if they are taking digital and media literacy seriously. All right, let's continue with the questions from the chat. So one person wrote, how do you see the role of public educational institutions in digital and media literacy? And do you work together with schools?
Yeah, thank you. So we do work together with schools. I have to admit, it is a little bit hard to get in with schools, you know, because they, of course, educators are, they have so many requirements they already have to fulfill. So it can be a little bit tricky, but we've definitely had many, many educators reach out to us within Germany and around Europe and around the world. And we share with them, you know, our workshop outlines, our exhibition materials, so that they can self-host. Because of course we also deal with the issue of, if we don't have the right languages or the right location, you know, there's only so much we can do. But then if we actually build the capacity of educators anywhere in the world, they can fulfill that work, they can train their colleagues, and it really multiplies from there. So that's, you know, the model that we are really excited about. And the role of public educational institutions is definitely very important when it comes to digital and media literacy. I think there is, and rightly so, there is quite a lot of focus on preparing young people, teens, young adults, kids for careers, you know, preparing them for careers, let's say in engineering, in design, in anything related to digital technologies, which is very important. I understand that. And And I think there's also a space to also step back and practice these critical questioning, these critical like critical thinking skills when it comes to technology, because especially if educators are training the engineers and designers of tomorrow, it would be quite helpful to make sure that these young people are equipped with what questions to even ask. For example, this is a really cool app and it makes a lot of money, whatever, but is it good for mental health? Is it addictive? Is it stressing people out? All of these other questions that could be asked. We have a lot of resources that deal with design tricks, like persuasive design tricks, which are used, in modern technologies. For example, you'll see a big green flashing button more than you'll see the tiny hyperlink text that says no thank you. So, this is a big topic too, of even just exposing young people to design tricks and to kind of approach it more in an ethical and philosophical way. I think that can also open the door for making even better engineers of tomorrow, who can perhaps, develop modern digital technologies that hopefully cause less harm than the ones that we have been seeing.
All right, thank you very much. You raised a very important topic, so this just came to my mind when you mentioned deceptive design. So all these negative design practices you find online that manipulate consumers and especially young consumers. So let's talk about maybe privacy and data handling. If you think about like all these deceptive designs, these practices, these negative nudges that are used, and then the approach of raising awareness and allowing for critical thinking, what is a bit missing, or maybe I'm not sure, is how can we change actual behavior? Because all these apps look super attractive, they're a lot of fun, and then they're like drawing all your attention to it. As you said, your mental health can suffer from it. So what we often observe, which is quite frustrating, if you want to engage in like data privacy and like positive data handling, is the intention behavior gap, right? So consumers say they want to like I don't know, protect their data, but then they use like all these passwords like 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. So what would your solution be? Like next to, of course, informing and making everything transparent. But yeah, if you have some thoughts on that, that would be great.
That's fantastic. Actually, our executive director, I think a few years ago, I think it was near the start of the COVID pandemic, wrote a really great article on our website. I can share the link later. It's called "Technology is Stupid." And it's a provoking title. But the idea, or one of the ideas, I should say, which is proposed in this article, is about how many times when we're using technologies, we might be expecting that it's the best design and it's the most simple and easy to use and seamless, no friction. But, for example, when we're looking at open source softwares or privacy conscious softwares, which should also be open source, hopefully. Sometimes they're not really designed very seamlessly, because they don't have billion-dollar teams working behind them. They're usually small-scale projects, ad hoc, somebody working on it and sharing it with the world, or a small team. And I think, a part of what this article is talking about is that we need to also scale our own expectations of technology. Because, you mentioned passwords and we were just talking about design tricks. And I think, we oftentimes we look at the most extreme example, like with design tricks. It's so easy to say, oh yeah, of course that's a design trick when it's a scam. But what about when we actually look at, the tool that we're using like right now, or the tool that, a teacher might be using in the classroom, and to really look at it and see like why is it so, like, what makes this easy, and why is easy so important? Like, every time, sorry, I hope I'm not going off on this, but every time, for example, I get a new smartphone, which hopefully is less and less often because they last longer, but every time I get a new smartphone, I find that I have a learning hurdle. I have to learn how to use it again. Maybe the swipe feels different. And it's the same with any other technology we use. If we rely only on these mega big tech corporations and their tools, of course, everything will be the same. It'll be easy. But part of, I think, that friction might be kind of necessary. It kind of slows us down. It stops us. Maybe I'm not clicking the red button because, this app is designed differently and I have to kind of think about it. So I hope that makes sense. So maybe asking ourselves, why are we looking for seamlessness? Why is it so important that the buttons are in the same spot? Or can we actually benefit from just taking a minute to get acquainted with this technology in our hands,
Yes, that makes a lot of sense. So thank you very much for your extensive answer on this. So it is a topic we have to, of course, work on a lot. It is in our minds or for a long time already. So. But thank you very much for equipping consumers and users with all the tools you're offering, with some essential parts to become more media literate and more digital literate, to make more informed decisions. So it is a very important step towards what we're aiming for, to overthink maybe what we're doing. So given the approach time, you already said, let's talk more about it. And it already raised questions with me. Your statement on risk is inherited. So
Yeah.
that also caught my attention. It's very interesting. So I would be happy if you take the time to elaborate a bit more, give some practical examples where we find that in our everyday life, maybe also with a focus on where we as employees find that in our everyday life. So how are corporations also affected with this?
Absolutely, yeah. As you can tell, I'm very enthusiastic about this topic. So, in the Digital Inquirer Kit, we talk about risk is inherited in the context of investigations. And of course, that context is very particular, but to expand it, the ways that I've been applying it in my life are very simple. For example, the moment I acknowledged that my colleagues, for example, or my friends even in Germany, all have a different background. Some of them have a migration background. Some of them are refugees. Some of them are, maybe feel less safe in certain circumstances. Some of them are part of LGBTQ plus communities. And once I started acknowledging and kind of opening my eyes to these important factors that influence people's lives or shape people's lives, it also helps me to understand ways in which I can protect them more. So, for example, let's say I am working at an exhibition and somebody comes to me and they say, oh my God, I love this and that project, and I am this very important person, and I would like to be in touch with the person who wrote this. And, of course, one option I have is to give them the contact details of my colleague. But that's not very safe or thoughtful for the comfort of my colleague. In that case, of course, it makes more sense for me to thank that person and say, you can give me your contact information and I can pass it on to my colleague, and they can reach out to you. So just to think about the ways in which we are holding on to other people's data and controlling that data, and like, where's our influence in that? And the same can be said of so many other things as well. Maybe a friend sends us a picture of their child and it's really adorable. I probably should not share that picture with anyone else because I didn't receive permission to do so. And maybe it's risky for them. You know, maybe they're you know, a single mom or a single dad, single parent, and they're very busy, so maybe they won't write me back. But I know that I need to protect the data of children because children are in a vulnerable group. So just to show some examples on day-to-day life, how that's you know, quite important to think about their risk factor. And you know, maybe it's affecting us more or less depending on our jobs. Of course, with a journalist, it's different because maybe interviewing someone who's in risk puts you at risk because now you know this like deep secret story, or you know, that is putting them in danger. That's a different scenario, but you can also think about this in kind of a day-to-day life scenario.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for your answer. So when you mentioned the handling of contact details, of course, if you're networking and engaging, so this is something which affects, of course, all of us, not only in our private life, but also in our working life. So thank you very much. Actually, I have a lot of more questions, so I will approach them to you probably afterwards. To our audience, of course, the offer stands to get in touch with the CDR initiative, with the office, to get the slides. So we will share them once you send us an email. And yeah, so what I'm left with now is to thank you very much, Safa, for your presentation, for the insightful Q&A. And of course, I will want to thank our audience for the questions you raised in the chat and your interest in the last CDR Impulse or impetus for CDR of this season. But as I mentioned in the beginning, we're now taking just a short break and working on the new events for 2024. And we will continue in spring and look forward to exchanging ideas with you again. So if you don't want to miss out on our news, just sign up for our newsletter on our website or follow us on LinkedIn. And yeah, this is it for today's presentation and Q&A. And I wish you a great evening. Take care of all of you. Bye.